Hi, I'm Lisa K. Donner, along with Jeff Charles, Sarah Cowgill, Tim Donner, and Scott Cosenza. And this is the Conservative Five, Liberty Nation's online TV news program. Feeling inadequate? Well, go get yourself a PhD and parade about having everyone call you doctor. Yes, Jill Biden is in the spotlight for title abuse. Joseph Epstein wrote an unflattering account of Mrs. Biden in the Wall Street Journal, and boy, did he ever hear about it. Here's what Mr. Epstein wrote. Madam First Lady, Mrs. Jill Biden, kiddo, a bit of advice on what may seem like a small, but I think is a not unimportant matter. Any chance you might drop the doctor before your name? Dr. Jill Biden sounds and feels fraudulent, not to say a touch comic, unquote. Of course, the left came unhinged and nearly demanded a public hanging for Mr. Epstein. However, he did indeed break open a discussion that everyone's been wanting to have. So what's the deal with Dr. Jill? Scott, you wrote an article this week. What do
it's Dr. Lisa.
Oh, yes, it's Dr. Scott.
Dr. Scott.
Dr. Scott, you wrote an article this week. What do Dr. Seuss and Dr. Biden have in common? Do you think Jill Biden is looking for love in all the wrong places? And yes, this is a softball. I've set it on a tee. Now you may hit it out at the park, please.
It says a lot about a person who goes out of their way to gain unearned respect and admiration. And that's clearly what's being done here. Joe Biden himself said that Jill Biden got this title so that she could get mail addressed to Dr. and Senator Biden. She was sick of it being addressed to Senator and Mrs. Biden. Now, nobody had the heart to tell her that even if she did get the doctorate, it would still be addressed to Senator and Dr. Biden, because that's how these naming conventions work. So she exhibits her ignorance in more profound ways every day. But the idea that, they put out this Thanksgiving message from the fake office of president-elect, and it was from Joe and Dr. Jill Biden. So they can't even keep the formal with the formal, right? It should be Joseph R. Biden and Dr. Biden if you wanted to go that way, but it's not. And it's just, she wants to be called a doctor, just like Whoopi Goldberg thought she would make a great surgeon general because she's a great doctor. And the idea is the left has now made this into a cause celeb because they've just invented the idea that the attack was a misogynist attack, as if men wouldn't be similarly attacked. But we know from previous writings, of course, their hypocrisy is laid bare. They famously went after Sebastian Gorka of the Trump administration for wanting to be called doctor and made great fun of that title. And the Washington Post and New York Times have policies of not using the title doctor, in their style book. It's part of the AP style book as well, unless it is a medical doctor or you're talking about their specialty. So if Jill Biden was giving a lecture at an education training conference, then her title would be appropriate, of course. But that's not what goes on here. So Ben Carson is just Mr. Carson in the New York Times, but Jill Biden is Dr. Jill.
All right, Jeff, I can feel you chomping at the bit.
Yeah, I mean, and I'm going to piggyback off of what Scott was saying, because that's exactly where I was going. I mean, how often do you see them insist on calling Dr. Ben Carson Dr. Ben Carson? They don't. And he deserves it far more than she does. He's a world-renowned surgeon, and they treated him with nothing but contempt. But even beyond that, I mean, if they disagreed with the article, they could have just said, oh, we disagree because of that. The over-the-top response was unbelievable. But it's something that we're becoming used to seeing from the left. I mean, you write something critical of somebody that they love, they freak out about it. Never mind the fact that they've been bagging on Melania Trump for 4 years for no good reason. She hasn't done anything to anybody, but they were slamming her all the time for no reason. But then they get butthurt because somebody says something about Dr. Jill Biden. It's absolutely ridiculous. I thought it was hilarious. And this story is very entertaining to me just to watch the left react.
I'm deeply offended. I'm deeply offended that this panel would try to bring low a woman who wrote a dissertation for her PhD in education on student retention in community colleges. This is an issue of earth-shattering importance, overlooked, never discussed during the presidential election. Shockingly. So
let's be clear
this
too.
lack of respect for Dr. Biden from Jeff and Scott, I find deeply offensive.
Can I
Sarah,
just say I can't stand that kind of attitude? And by the way, you must refer to me as national columnist before you call on me again. Just what the heck is wrong with these people? Who cares? Nobody cares. I mean, if you are a legit, delivered babies, if you sawed off somebody's arm in the field over in Afghanistan, come on, Dr. Jill Biden, because I don't like the mail. I don't
Sarah,
get it.
they're making all kinds of, Salon had an article and I can't believe I read it. But anyway, this is happening because she's a woman. We would never dare say this about a man. I mean, do you feel slighted as a woman that, she should hold on to this doctor of education? By the way, how many millions of Americans are out there like Whoopi Goldberg and think that, she makes house calls for sniffles and sneezes?
That's the entire reason for the media treatment of not referring to non-medical doctors with the honorific. It doesn't make any sense.
Yes, and it adds importance that isn't there. And would I be offended? No. If I had a doctorate in whatever, no, I wouldn't, because, if you're really good at something, people are going to find out what your credentials are. You don't have to parade it about. You don't have to say, look at me, look at me, look at me. Look how many initials I have after my name. And that's what she's doing. And I find that demeaning to her sex and our sex.
I'm trying to figure out which is worse, that Dr. Jill Biden insists on using doctor herself and accepts it willingly, happily, I suppose, or the fact that everyone around her is willing to continue to call her doctor. I mean, which one is worse, that everybody showers an undeserved title on her, or that she gladly accepts it? I've yet to figure out which is worse, but the totality of it. I mean, when you put that together with the way that Melania Trump was treated, I mean, probably the most impressive first lady in terms of beauty and in terms of education of any American first lady. And she was shunted aside, and now Dr. Jill is in the house. She's in the house.
Well, I can't wait to hear what the Secret Service nickname for her is going to be down the road, like high anxiety. High anxiety.
Yeah.
I think doctor in the house.
What were you going to say, Jeff?
Yeah, I was going to say, I can't remember who said this, but there's a saying, and I think it applies here. If you have to keep telling people that you're a lady, then maybe you're not. If you have to keep hyping yourself up, then maybe you're not worth the hype. I mean, going back to Dr. Ben Carson, he doesn't insist on being called doctor. He has established his reputation by his accomplishments and his achievements. He lets those speak for themselves. So it sounds like there's a little bit of insecurity, maybe on Jill Biden's part, but there's also an insecurity on the left about how they can tout this woman who seemingly hasn't accomplished as much as they think that she should have. And I think that's a lot of why they're trying to always deflect to Melania, because what do they have going on? And in the end, none of this really matters. I mean, it doesn't really matter whether she's a doctor or not, but the fact that they freak out over this so much kind of betrays a lack of security in the people that they have in the office now, or that they will have in January.
Those social science doctorates are often a house of cards in terms of actual research and work put into compared to a hard science. There was a
wait a minute. Here comes the Juris Doctorate.
There was a tweet that I love, Jeff, that from a guy at Stanford who said he never met a physicist who used the doctor title and never met a doctor of education who didn't use it. I just wanted to add for the record that when she defended her thesis at the University of Delaware, her husband was the senior senator, U.S. senator from Delaware, and her stepson was the attorney general. So
certainly you're not suggesting that there was any sort of favoritism demonstrated towards.
Definitely not. And also for the record, Biden holds a master's degree from Villanova University, and no one in the world is questioning the validity of that degree or its intellectual heft and might.
I will give Jill Biden credit for one thing. She apparently does remember that the University of Delaware is her alma mater, so to speak. Unlike her husband, who during the campaign proudly boasted of his degree from Delaware State, where he never went and which is an all-black college.
All right, well, we're going to wrap this up, but I am going to piggyback a little bit off of what Jeff said. I heard somebody, and I don't know if it was Tucker Carlson or who it was, said the Biden family has social class insecurity. And I think that's a really astute observation. Well, I love this line from the author, Mr. Epstein, who has suffered much derision. Quote, a wise man once said that no one should call himself doctor unless he has delivered a child. Think about it, Dr. Jill, and forthwith drop the doc. That's it for our Conservative 5 panel today. Check out our other C5 shows and segments on your favorite video platform, YouTube, Vimeo, Rumble, we're on them all. As well, Liberty Nation has its own Roku channel where you can see all our TV productions. Thanks so much for tuning in. And remember to surf on over to libertynation.com, sign up for new Member Zone subscriptions, just $17.76 a year. And remember, folks, liberty all the time and everywhere.